Right, all right. What's happening, everybody? Hey, this is John Kitchens, and man, episode 70 of Expert Mentors Live. Super excited for today's episode. We've got Mr. Mike Wall back on. Going to talk a little 5 steps to recession-proof your business. So if you guys have questions, throw them in the Q&A, throw them in the chat. We'll answer anything that you guys have. So Mike, man, say hello to the Honey Badger Nation.
What's up, Honey Badger Nation? Dude, I'm excited to be back, man. I love this group. I love what we're doing. I love you, man. You know that. You're like a brother to me, man. I know you're my brother from another mother for sure.
That's right.
And I'm super excited to dig in and hopefully add some value today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, man, I was looking back. We had you back on episode 16. I was like, it wasn't that far ago, but it's been a minute. And man, I know you're super busy, and I appreciate you making the time to jump in. Going to add some great value as always. So make sure you guys have your notepad and pen, and man, let's get after it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm gonna keep it. I'm going to keep it fairly simple today, but what I'm going to talk about is absolutely critical. I mean, I know we're not experiencing a recession in our marketplace. Our marketplace is still good, but you're starting to get this feeling that there is a looming maybe correction or slowdown. And you know, I talk to my team about this all the time. We're not really worried about the slowdown. In fact, we welcome it, man. We know that in a slowdown, it usually creates big opportunity. And the reason for that is because when it becomes more difficult to sell a house, you know, Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob, they don't turn to their nephew who just got his real estate license 6 months ago, right? They don't do that anymore because he can't sell it, right? He doesn't have any tools, systems, or resources in order to be able to go out and market a home appropriately, and you know, find as many buyers as possible to be able to get, you know, the biggest and best offer for his or her client. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of going back to the fundamentals. Something that you can always, you know, it'll always be there as a foundational principle that you can have success with. So, and a lot of these will seem like we've all heard them before, but if you write these things out and you do them, consistently, any recession or anything that happens in the real estate market, it won't affect you. In fact, you might be, you're more likely to take market share because in most cases, your competitors are not doing this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You know, you know, I found that quote. Holly was like, that's a weird quote. So, you know, that I posted at the top of the call when we posted this call in the Honey Badger group, and it's Warren Buffett, right? And he's like, you know, you get to see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. And it's like, I mean, it nails it, right? You get to see like who's really doing the fundamentals, who's really doing the things that they've got to be doing that's going to work in any type of market. So I'm super excited to unpack this for everybody.
Yeah. And to your point, man, you know, there are a lot of agents right now that they look successful. You know, like the tide is up right now, and it's really easy to, when you get a listing, typically it sells fairly quickly if it's in a good location and priced correctly. And so real estate right now is just flowing. It's really easy. I don't want to say there's not a lot of skill required, because if you're going to sell real estate at a high level, I mean, there's definitely going to be some skill required, but you're not just, when the tide goes out, so to speak, you know, you definitely have to have a plan for that. And what's tough is when you don't learn those fundamentals. In other words, you know, the people that have gotten licensed in the last, I mean, our market cycle's been good for like 7 years now, right?
Sure.
And so like with those people that got in the last 7 years, unfortunately, they haven't learned, most of those agents, they haven't learned the fundamentals, and so they really don't have any predictability in their business. And, you know, when the proverbial tide does go out, they're going to be, you know, they're gonna be naked, man. They're gonna be caught naked. And so, you know, when I talk about these fundamental principles, again, most of us, when we hear these, will be like, oh yeah, well, sure. But, you know, the reality of it is a lot of people aren't doing these things. They're still, they know what they are, they're just not doing them. And so for those of you who watch this today, And if you're having success, that's great. I'm happy for you. And you're not doing this stuff, start doing it today. And that way you will have built the muscle memory. You'll have built the habit to start making this stuff happen, right? And you'll start doing it, and you'll start doing it consistently. And when the tide does go out, or when the recession does hit, you will be fully prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the key word, and I'm so glad you said it. I just want to emphasize it a little bit more. It's habits, right? What are those habits? What are those success principles, right? It's basics, right? It's John Wooden 101 that we talk about all the time. Is like, I don't care if you just won your 9th consecutive national championship. It's day 1 of practice. We're going to learn how to put our socks on and tie our shoes correctly. So it is. That's the number 1 key trait of success is habits. And I think that's man, what a great reminder.
Yep. And I know you'll have a lot to say on this first one, because I know you're a big proponent of most of this stuff. But this first one I know is definitely near and dear to you. The first one is knowing your why. You know what I mean? And there's a hint here. It's not money. I promise you, it's not money. Money typically is what fuels your why. In other words, when you make money, this might be something that you use the money to fund, right? And so, like, everybody's why is different, right? Like, yours is different than mine. Like, for instance, I have two boys, right? And I have a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old. My 16-year-old is diagnosed with autism, right? He's mildly autistic. And so, like, for me, I know that Pearson may live with us for the rest of his life. I mean, that is something that is possible. You know what I mean? And so, like, in planning for that, like, it's not hard to get out of bed every day knowing that, I've got a responsibility to be able to set him up for the rest of his life, so that if he does have to depend on us, that he will never, once we pass away and he's here by himself or with his brother, that he will never have to worry about money, right? And so that's my fire when I get out of bed every day, man. That's what fuels me to do what I do.
Right.
And so, like, it may be easier for me to be able to identify my why. It might not be a simple activity for most people to identify their why, but this is something, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, man, that you want to spend some time on, man, right? You want to spend some time on figuring out what your why is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We actually, we touched on this at the last event that we had, the Agent to CEO course. That, I mean, it went better than Jay and I could even imagine that it would go. And there's a section in there that we go through. It's just part of the process. You got to figure out your why. And actually, Holly taught that session at Agent to CEO, and just the work that she's gone through. And so, you talk about Pearson, and you shared an amazing story with me why, you weren't able to make it to Vegas. And that just, like, I was like, dude, I already loved you, man. But that was like a whole nother level when you shared that. And, what you would look at, like Pearson's not really the why. It's the things that you're doing and what it breaks down to, and it's contribution so that impact. And so when you think about your why, it's to whatever your contribution is so that there's an impact. And so, like, when I hear that from you, it's like, okay, I know the things that you're doing on a day in and day out basis. And it's like, man, you're like modeling behavior, because I could just imagine seeing what you were doing last week, and the people that just, like, look, they like, I think about you different now, right? I look at you differently just because how you're showing up as a leader and in the eyes for your kids. And so knowing what that is, and it takes time. Like, man, it's even still hard, for me to kind of get clear on it, but there is a process. And, you have, Simon Sinek's work, Start With Why, but he also has a follow-up to that it's called Find Your Why. And it's a process that he takes you through to help you. And it really comes down to those two things, right? When you drill layers deeper, it always comes back to what type of contribution so that you have some type of impact, right? And so, like, the things that you're doing, you're getting out of bed every morning, but the impact that you're having, that's the why. And, there's definitely some work and process there, man. I challenge all of you guys, because when things get tough, right? When the tide goes out, you're going to have to tap back in this, right? Yeah. To get up to get up when you don't want to.
And I think a lot of people try to get by on willpower, and we know that, you only have so much willpower, right? And what we also know is that why power will always outlast willpower. And
right.
so like it is so important. And I would encourage you, you and I both know this right now, that there are a lot of agents who are out there, they're successful. They are a product of a great market. We just know that. We know that to be true. And if this hits one or two or three of those people, and that are having success and as a byproduct of the good market, but they can start right now, they can start doing some of these fundamentals, they will be able to continue that success when the market does correct itself. But if you dig into your why and you really get to you start to understand why you do what you do, why you get out of bed every day, what you're passionate about, it's like, man, you might be having success right now, and then when you tap into that, like, you take it to a whole nother level, man. And so I get really excited, I get really passionate about talking to that, because to me, I mean, that if we're looking at a foundation or we're looking at the Earth's layers, right? That one to me is like that's at the very bottom. I mean, you build everything on top of that. That if your why is strong enough, it will hold up everything else that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it, man. Why power outlasts willpower. Willpower is just, it's just a form of energy, right? You can muscle through things, but that energy is going to be depleted. It's not something that's sustainable over a long period of time. So figuring it out, man, that's the sustainability, right? To where you can set it and, you can build upon it and continue to run for years and years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so my number 2 is follow a routine, follow a calendar. Make sure that, every day is, I always say every day is scripted, man. And I'm always looking for white space to fill in my calendar. Like if I have white space in my calendar, then that's vacation time. You know what I mean? And I know people that are on vacation time don't make a lot of money.
Right.
And so like, I literally color code my calendar. When I look at when I look at my calendar every day, I know I have to be on a certain number of appointments, whether that be recruiting appointments. I don't do a lot of listing appointments anymore. But like, so my appointments now are like recruiting based. So when I look at my calendar, if I know I need to be on 4 recruiting appointments a week, I'm looking for 4 green rectangles on my calendar, right? So I know if I log into my calendar on Sunday night and I don't have 4 rectangles that are green, I'm in trouble, man, right? I know what I have to do, right? And that'll be a good segue into the next one here. But following your calendar with consistency. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist, right? And what I love about a calendar is that you don't have to memorize your day, right? You know exactly what you're doing. Your calendar follows you around all the time right now. It's on your phone, it's on your computer, and so there's no excuse. Hell, I even print out a hard copy of my calendar, and I'll write notes on it on stuff I'm going to do. Oh, yeah, exactly, man.
Got mine right here.
Print my calendar out, right? I got it with me. I got it on my phone. I've got I get updates on my phone when I'm 30 minutes before I'm supposed to do something. And I just love it, man, because that's one less thing I have to remember every day.
Yeah.
And so, part of that following a calendar, like you said, is really, it's getting into a routine, but it's habits, right? It's what are you doing? Now, let me just caution you, because I've had people on my team and I've gotten into this bad habit as well, where you just kind of filled in the space on your calendar, but it didn't mean anything. In other words, we might set up an ideal day for an agent, right? Where we know from 8 to 10 is lead generation time, or 8 to 11 is lead gen time, 4 to 7 is lead gen time, because we know those are the most optimal times to pick up the phone in order to get somebody on the other end and potentially set an appointment. And what we would do is these guys would come in and you look at their calendar, it looked amazing, man, right? And then you bring them in on a coaching session, and I'd be like, well, I see what your calendar looks like, man, but are you following that every day? And they'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not really doing it. You know what I mean? Or we have them report their dials, and they'd have 5 hours of lead gen time or 3 hours of lead gen time on their schedule, and then they turn in their dials, and they're like, well, how many dials do you have for the week? They'd be like, 200. And I'm like, you got 10 hours worth of dial time here. You got 200 calls. It's like, I don't know if that adds up, man.
Right.
So you got to be real careful, man, that it doesn't become something that just you're looking at every day because it looks good, right? You actually have to adhere. You have to be disciplined to follow the stuff that's on your calendar. And it's like, it's like that book, Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect. It's like doing, if you do 1% every day, if you get 1% better every day, you're 365% better at the end of the year. So if you like that lead gen time, you may have 4 days of lead gen, right? That's no good. But on that 5th day, you get a yes, right? And that might mean, a $5,000 commission check. And
right.
so you get one yes every week. The great thing about our industry is our margins are so large that if you get 1 yes a week, you can make way better than a $100,000 income a year. And there's 7% of the U.S. population that makes over $100,000 a year.
Right.
Very different. And most of those people, they have a 4-year degree. Some of them have a 6-year or 8-year degree, some of these doctors. So we're very fortunate that in real estate that you don't even have to have a degree. We have a low barrier of entry. That's a good and a bad thing. But we have an opportunity, a very easy opportunity that if we're disciplined enough to follow our calendar, to follow those things that we have on our calendar every day, that we can make a $100,000 income very easily. You know what I mean?
Easy. Very easy. And I love the color coding side of things, because what it also lets you do is it also gives you a glance to see, are you getting enough time in the things that matter, right? So the green, those are your high leveraged activities, right? Those are the things that are going to produce the results. And for you agents listening in that, you're still grinding away, on the business, Mike did episode 16 and it was on expireds, right? That's how you built your whole business. That's how you cut your teeth into this, into what you do. And it propelled you to do what you're able to do now, is coach and lead and focus on, agent attraction side of things. So if you guys are looking like, man, I need to be doing it, but man, go watch that episode 16 of Expert Mentors on expireds. But that's a money-making activity, right, in this business. And so when you take it at a glance, you can step back and say, okay, my working time, right? Half of my calendar here, more than half of my calendar should be working time. And of that working time is the number that we always go off is 70%. 70% of that working time should be high leveraged activities. And in this business, and if you follow Darren talks about it all the time, it's lead gen, it's pitching your offer, and it's negotiating deals, right? That's your high leveraged activities. And that's even true for you on agent attraction side of things, right? You're pitching your offer, right? You're having conversations, your lead gen. So like for you at a glance, it should still be the same color code. It's just a different activity. And, obviously the other color codes for family time, for, I always go to Hal's Savers, right? That's the best routine. If you want to change your life, just follow Hal Elrod's, The Miracle Morning, The Savers. If you don't have that book, go get it. You nailed probably that book and The Compound Effect. If you didn't read nothing else but those 2 books, your life would be dramatically on a whole nother level.
Yep. I
For
agree.
sure.
So yeah, the calendar thing, again, I go back, writing out, knowing your why, writing that out, and really connecting to that, and then following a calendar, having a routine that you do every day, or at least Monday through Friday, right? And you do it consistently, and that the items that are in your calendar, that you put in your calendar, that you're adhering to those, and that you are actually doing them every day, to create that compound effect. And number 3 is you gotta lead generate, man, right? Number 3, and that, like, I taught a class yesterday here, and like, a lot of people they talk about lead gen, but like, nobody really dives into it. Like, we watch all these TV shows like Million Dollar Real Estate Agent. It's like, oh, I want to get my real estate license because I want to show like really nice apartments or really nice houses, and and then get a big fat commission check, right? And so they show these shows. These guys come up in fancy cars and suits and stuff, and the client shows up, they open the door, and at the end of the show, they negotiate an offer together, right? And then they collect a $100,000 paycheck. And people see that on TV and they're like, oh, I'm gonna get my real estate license. But what they don't show any of the work that went before that to get that client to the door. You know what I mean? So real estate on the surface, it looks really sexy, man, right? But they don't, that whole dirty side of the business, I call it the dirty side, man, because that's the side where you're actually grinding, man. And I taught a class last night, and I said, I'm going to talk about a part of real estate. And it may turn some of you off. Like, you may realize, what have I got myself into here? Like, that's not something I want to do. You know what I mean? No one, like, I promise you, in school, they're not talking about picking up the phones and dialing, 100 people in a day. They just don't talk about that stuff. And because they know they probably wouldn't finish their courses if they did. You know what I mean? And so like for me, when you talk about scaling a business and creating consistency in a business and predictability, like you got to lead generate. And that's true, John, for any company, right? Not just for real estate businesses, but all businesses need leads, right?
Right. Define lead gen, just so we're crystal clear. I'm the big proponent on, okay, what does that exactly mean? Right. Because, somebody over here they have their perception or understanding of what that might mean. Like, what do you mean by say, man, you got to lead generate? What does that mean?
Yeah. It's a great question. And so to your point, like if you, let's say you just lead generate for 2 hours a day, right? Every day you wake up, you're consistently lead generating from 8 to 10 because there's been a study done that shows that the best times to get a hold of people are from 8 to 10 and 4 to 7, right? That's when the connections spike. And so we know that real estate is a contact sport, right? We know that. So the more people you talk to, the better opportunity you have to set an appointment. And then, appointments lead to contracts and contracts leads to closing. So from 8 to 10, if you're going to spend 2 hours of your day calling people or connecting with people, you want to make sure that you're optimizing that time. And there's a couple different ways to do that, right? So I could hand you a phone book and I could say, hey, from 8 to 10, call, A to wherever you can get to and try to find somebody that wants to buy or sell a house, right? That's one way to do it. That's not an efficient way to do it, but that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is say, hey, okay, I'll send you the for sale by owner and expired data every day, right? And so, that's one way to optimize your lead gen, because you're essentially sifting through the phone book, you're sifting through all the people in your local market, because your for sale by owners and your expireds, we know a couple things, right? We know they both want to sell their property. We know that the expireds willing to sell their property and they're willing to hire a realtor to do it. And so, like, when we call those people, we have a better opportunity to convert that lead to an appointment. And so if lead generation is in your schedule, for me, it's calling, John. That's the short answer to your question. But, you can door knock, you can go to networking events to lead gen, because again, it's about scaling the number of conversations that you have. And another way to optimize the number of conversations you have is by using a dialer, right? So, Mojo has a dialer, Vulcan 7 has a dialer. And if you don't know what a dialer is a way to call multiple numbers at one time, or if it's a single line dialer, it's a way to not have to peck dial every phone call. It's kind of a turn and burn type thing. And it's really all about efficiency and making as many calls and contacts as possible. So for me, lead gen means picking up the phone. Lead gen means calling the best quality data talking to as many people in the shortest amount of time possible.
Perfect. No, that's great. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say, what's going to make the cash register ring the fastest? And that's the for sale by owners and expireds, right? That's why you want to hit those first, because like you said, they're the highest probability that they're going to work with us, and they're the closest that's going to help make the cash register ring. Yeah. And so that definitely has to be a part of their, Giselle was asking, how do you guys leverage KV Core or any type of lead gen platform that way in what you guys do for lead generation?
Yeah, so for our Cincinnati and Dayton teams, we have a Commissions Inc. platform. And when we transitioned over from KW, we already had like close to 25,000 leads in that database. But in our Columbus team, we're utilizing the KV Core platform. Because that is something that's obviously been provided for us by EXP.
Sure.
So yeah, answer to your question is yes. And just to piggyback on that a little bit is that I love where her head's at with that question, because she obviously gets it. She understands that, okay, so, buyer lead registrations or home eval registrations, those are good calls to make, right? Those are better calls to make than if I handed her a phone book and said, hey, call these people in the phone book and see if anybody wants to buy or sell a house, right? So yeah, so to me, like new registrations, it's speed to lead, right, through lead generation. You're getting to the lead as quickly as possible. It used to be 5 minutes. Now it's probably more like 2 minutes or maybe even less than that. And calling good quality data. So yeah, lead generation, super important. Again, that one may be, if you want to put a star by that one if you're writing this down, because That one probably is the most important. If you can do that one and do it really well, and do it consistently, then you're going to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So give some context over here to kind of what you're doing, right now on the lead gen side for agent attraction.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you there?
Yeah. So, man, I used to be, obviously I've been a proponent of the phones, right? And so like, to me, I know that I try to follow, what the guys that are doing at a high level are doing, man. And so, it's one thing to call agents in your marketplace and just try to get them to go out to coffee. That's really chasing. That's not attracting business. So like last night we had a big event at our office, and it was just like how to make $100,000 in real estate, right? And so like we knew our audience, right? So if I we went back and we pulled our board statistics, and we knew that 50% of the agents in our marketplace hadn't been paid at all this year. 50% haven't received a paycheck. And 70% didn't get a paycheck in the month of July. And so we know there's a real disconnect in our market. We know there's a lot of agents out there struggling, not making a lot of money. And for some of them, it's not their fault. You know what I mean? They're in it. They chose an environment that unfortunately it wasn't able to provide the type of guidance or resources that they need in order to have success. So when we sent our message out, right, our message was, hey, you can make $100,000 in real estate. We're going to teach a free class on how to do that. We had 30 people register. We had close to probably 18 people in the room last night that actually showed up. But what's great about that versus just calling random people out of a phone book or out of your DABR list is that those are the type of people you want to be in business with, right? So what we did is we sifted through. Without having to call anybody, our message that went out to the agent base was, you can make $100,000 in real estate. We can show you how, right? And we got 30 people that signed up, about 18 people showed up. But what's great, like those are all really good leads, right? We know that people that are volunteering their time, there's no CE for this class. It was from 5:30 to 7:30 last night. The people that are there, like, they're in, man. You know what I mean? Those are the type of people we want to be in business with. So you always talk about attracting business, right? Or attracting agents. So that's the type of people we want to attract. And so now it's up to us. So our lead gen is, right, so we got them into our funnel, right? They're here, they came in, they committed 2 hours to being with us last night. And now it's just going to be about the follow-up, like in getting them in a setting where we can not recruit them, but we can get them in here and show them that we can make a real impact on their business if they join forces with us. And so to me, now that is attraction at the highest level, man. That's not recruiting anymore. That's just like some gangster, like Mike Reese type shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the key thing there too, takeaway for you guys is like, when's the next one scheduled, right? When's the next training one scheduled that you guys can do to get, like you said, on that consistency. And, it really is, when you train and coach and mentor the market better than the training that they're getting from their current broker, you become their broker. And so that's the whole mindset and strategy behind that. And it is, I mean, I absolutely love it. I think that's, that's what Al's doing in Cleveland. And he committed to it in January, and they're crushing it, right? They're crushing it. And I would just tell everybody listening in, it's like, well, I don't want to do all of that. Well, they didn't start out that way either. They started out with one event. A couple months later, they added another one. And a couple months later, they added online stuff that they're doing. So I would just recommend you guys just to start, just to do it, just to add value. Just don't be afraid to get in there and offer that. Gordon was asking, could we maybe post a copy of your ad that you were using for that?
Yeah, I can actually post the slides I use for the training as well.
Cool.
And here's one thing I would tell you, everybody who's listening, because my mindset was, well, like we get in this, we convince ourselves that we think everybody knows what we do. And the reality of it is, go, whatever, it doesn't matter what board you're in. I promise you probably 50% of the agents are not making any money. And so I would encourage you to go pull your numbers. People are not thinking like you, and you need to realize that you have something to offer. I
Right.
don't care how basic it is. There are people in your market not making any money. Like they don't know anything.
Yep.
And so if you could just give them a little value, they're going to try, they're going to be, they'll be in your funnel and they're going to want to attach themselves to you and be around you more. And
Right.
what's really cool about that is when you get them in your funnel, as they raise their game, you got to constantly raise your game. Right. So
Right.
it's just this, it's a great effect for everybody. Everybody wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In another, I mean, this is interesting. Gene shared this in Vegas last week. NAR statistic. I didn't even realize this. He said, but agents move every 2 years on average. A real estate agent makes a move every 2 years. So it's just like somebody's moving, somebody's making a move. They might as well make a move with you.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Awesome.
So for sure, man, agent attraction, definitely a big part of our lead generation now. Probably, I mean, it's becoming like almost all of our lead generation now, but it is no different than working with buyers or sellers or generating leads with buyers and sellers or being on appointments with buyers and sellers. It's almost the exact same thing.
Yep.
It's just your message is going to be a little bit different, right?
That's right. That's right.
So what we have knowing your why, we have writing out your goals, we have lead generation, we have follow a calendar. Or do we do writing out your goals?
Not yet.
Okay. So
Number 4.
So getting clarity on your goals, writing out your goals. Again, like we've heard, this is not anything new, man. It's not like earth shattering. But I mean, for me, I write out my goals every day. I have an app on my phone called Win Streak. I write out my goals every day. And it is the first step in making your goals tangible, right? And you'll see people that I have a vision board in my office, at home. When you really take the time to invest in writing out your goals or making a vision board, you're materializing. It's a way of making it so that you can touch it, that it becomes real. Like it's written now on a piece of, it was in your mind and now it's on a piece of paper. Like you can touch it, you can feel it, right? And it's the first step to materializing it into the world, right? And so like you write it down every day and you're speaking to your subconscious and your subconscious is constantly making or giving you thoughts to help materialize that into something that's real.
Right. Absolutely.
And so like, your goals, like, you always hear like begin with the end in mind. Right. And so like you start out, if it's a financial goal, you write that down and then you sit down with it's either you or somebody that's holding you accountable, your coach, your mentor, or somebody on your team leader maybe. And it's really working backwards to say, okay, what do I need to do to get there, right? So if it's $100,000, you got to figure out, okay, what's my average sale price, and then how many homes do I need to sell? What's my take home after my split or my brokerage, and then working it all the way backwards to the number of dials you need to make each day.
Right.
So we do that with every one of our agents when they come in, and like the national statistics show, like I think for every 200 dials you make, you get 40 contacts, 4 appointments, leads to 1 sale. That number is different for everybody. You know what I mean? You look at somebody who's been in the business for 2 or 3 years, right, versus somebody that's been in the business for 2 or 3 months. Their conversion rate in most cases for the veteran is going to be much better, right? And so when I can sit down with one of my agents and I can show them, hey, for every 50 phone calls you make, you set, 3 appointments and you get 1 sale. There's so much power in that, because if I got a guy in here and he's week 2 and he's laying a goose egg for the month, I'm like, hey, John, you got to make 150 phone calls this month, because we know based on your track record over the last 2 years that for every 50 phone calls you make, right, you set 3 appointments and you get 1 sale, right? There's so much power in that.
Yeah.
That's actually a great segue into my next one, which is knowing your numbers, right? Knowing your numbers is critical, and so like when you know your numbers every day, you're not anxious in your business. You're not scared. You understand what it takes to be successful. And so I'll tie that in as like 1A and 1B. I think like if you know your numbers, there's a I don't know. I think the best way to put it is it just provides that cover. It just provides that sanctuary for you to be able to go and know that no matter what's going on in my business, that I'm always going to be okay. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, and you got to reverse engineer, like you said, from the goal standpoint. And, you know, if you don't have somebody, man, connect with somebody to walk you through that. And I think it ties together even back to, you know, the rituals and sticking to it, man, to find that accountability person that's going to, you know, that you're going to be accountable to the calendar. But the things that get plugged into the calendar, guys, is knowing the numbers of the activities that we need to do to accomplish whatever it is we're wanting to accomplish. And I mean, that's with anything. And so just like you were saying with the calendar, I mean, all I got to do, man, give me about 5 seconds. Let me look at your calendar and I can tell you exactly what your outcome, what your income, what your results are going to be. And so it all ties together in that, you know, what's the goal? What is it that you're wanting to accomplish? Reverse engineer out and get clear on what those numbers based upon statistics. But you have to track yours. Just like you said, it's different, right? The skill set's a little bit different. Every data is a little bit different. Markets are a little bit different. You know, price point is a little bit different. So, you know, you might have to, you know, make, you know, X number more calls and go X number more appointments, excuse me, in certain markets versus others. But you got to know what those numbers are and track them. What are you guys using to track numbers and stuff right now?
I built my own spreadsheet. I have my own. It's a Google spreadsheet that we use. So in our meetings every Monday, we call out dials, contacts, the number of contracts, appointments, and lender nurtures or nurtures, excuse me, and then lender referrals. So that all goes into a spreadsheet, and then at the bottom of my spreadsheet, it calculates everything out. So like I can literally tell somebody's over the amount of phone calls they need to make or under, and how many under they are. So that, you know, when we meet in our one-on-ones, I can say, hey, listen, you're 13 calls shy every single day. You need to make 13 more calls every single day to get to where you want to be, right?
Right.
But another really important piece of knowing your numbers, and I don't care where you're at in your business. If you just started, you got to run a P&L, right? And the reason why you need to run a P&L is because you need to know where your money's going. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to know what your CPL is for if you're using Zillow, right? Like what are you making at the end of the day? And is that the best way to spend your money?
Yep.
Because right now, guys, listen, I promise you the market is really, it's good right now. And a lot of you don't have a running P&L. You're not using one. And the people that aren't running a P&L, those people are in trouble. When the market shifts, like you're going to be in big trouble because you don't have any idea where you're making your money. You don't know. And so like if you don't know where you're making your money and then all of a sudden the market shifts, you have to figure it out real quick. And you may not have enough time before you spend all your money on the lead sources that aren't making you anything before you're out of business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, it's so key, right? And knowing when to make what investments, what works, knowing the cash conversion cycle, right? You know, I remember when we ran TV for the first time. We had about 100,000 in the bank and TV at the time, like we owned the airways, was about a 10,000 spend and we were rocking. But as we noticed, as the year went on, we're taking listings, it's working, we're getting phone calls, but that bank account just slowly started depleting, but yet inventory went up and we were like, man, there's 50 listings here in our inventory right now that are directly tied to TV. And it took us until October to break even from that investment, right? But we didn't know that. So we saw the money going down and we cut TV. But yet if we would have stuck with it, it would have caught itself and then it would have just exponentially went. And that's the power in knowing your numbers, right? You make this investment into Zillow and you're spending $5,000 a month and then, I'm closing deals. But if you're not matching and look at the ROI, I guarantee you, most of you, there's a few exceptions, just like with anything, but most of you are breaking even or losing money if you're doing that. Yeah. And you've got to look at it. I would recommend two resources that would really help you out with that from an understanding. One is Greg Crabtree's book, simple numbers, straight talk, big profits. It was the game changer for us. We were operating when we got introduced to Greg, we were operating at negative 3% net profit before taxes.
Wow.
Like we were losing money. And so just going through Greg's book, it breaks down, because I think a lot of people are scared, right? They're just ignorant, right? They just don't know. And so they don't know where to dive in. And that book is meant for small business owners, right? Like if you don't understand the financials and the P&Ls and the numbers, and you're like, man, that ain't my thing. You're right. It'll never be your thing until you change your language, right? And become a student and be like, hey, I can learn that. I need to understand it. And that's the great resource. Simple numbers, straight talk, big profits, Greg Crabtree. But following just one of his principles, and it's his salary cap principle, following that, within maybe 6-7 months, we were -3 at the end of that year, introduced, implemented Crabtree within about 6 or 7 months, because when we found out, we reported this, we put ourselves on Front Street in front of our own mastermind. And I remember we were sitting in Aspen and mastermind, and we showed the numbers, right? We put it up on the board. I remember Harley and Chris Piard, and they dove in on it. But we held ourselves accountable. And by the next mastermind, I think we were at Kentucky Derby that year in May. And we were already about like 13 or 14% to the good, right? And so you guys diving in, those numbers will make more sense. But get that book. And then I would say on a personal level, and you can even carry it over, is Mike Malakowitz. I always mess up his last name, but it's Profit First. Yeah. The Profit First model is fantastic for you guys. I would say those two things right there will be a game changer for you. What's the old ostrich, sticking your head in the sand? Get up, man. Face it. You got to know your numbers.
And so, and to your point, is like it is like in a good market, it is difficult because you really, a lot of us get away with it, right? When there's a good market, I mean, you may have a surplus in your operating account of $200,000, you know what I mean? And you're not doing these things, but oh, how quickly the tide turns, my friend. Listen, we had a $16,000 a month Zillow spend at one time. And what we didn't realize is that we were converting a lot of deals, but we were losing money. And
right.
The reason why we were losing money is because too many people had their hand in the cookie jar when it came to our Zillow leads, right? And so like Zillow, you may be able to make some money on Zillow as a solo agent.
Yes.
You can probably turn a profit as a solo agent, but when you start farming those leads out to your team members and you got them on a 50-50 split,
yep.
and then you got an ISA salary in the mix and a bonus, you know what I mean, for setting an appointment bonus, like everybody's hands in the cookie jar. And guess what happens to your margins then?
Yep.
You get completely eaten up. So what is working for you now may not work for you when you start to hire your first buyer agent or your first listing specialist. And so you're literally, when you know your numbers, you're always able to look at those things and see where your money's coming in and where it's going out.
Another point too, and we saw this. So we were fortunate enough to be in Lawton, Oklahoma. And I say that because I don't think Kinder Reese would even be around if we were not. And so the thing is that you can get rewarded for bad behavior, right? Just like you said, in a good market, you can get rewarded for bad behavior. You cannot be doing these things and, like you said, have a surplus in your account. You can also get rewarded for bad behavior in high price point markets. Right, where your average sales price is 4, 5, 6, 700,000, right? And you're getting big cash and big checks. You can be half-assing it and still getting rewarded for bad behavior. The blessing for us to where we had to do these things is when your average sales price is less than 120, right? And you're growing a team, like everything matters. The detail. And here's the other thing that I would say with this, knowing your numbers, man, the details matter, right? Don't fall victim to that belief. Don't listen to the guy that says details don't matter. Details matter. Details matter for sure. And so I would, these, like you said in the beginning, man, everybody's going to be like, yeah, I know that. But how many of you are executing all 5 of these at a level 10?
And so like your point, I wish I would have, like, I love that because like I look at like guys like Dan Beer and Kyle Wilson, and I'm like, damn, dude, your average sale price is like 600 grand. You know what I mean? And it's like, so to your point, it's like they can be a little bit more haphazard when it comes to, to knowing your numbers, because like their margins are so big. We live in a market that's very similar to Lawton in that our average sale price is below 150, man. And so like,
you have to pay attention.
You have to be disciplined. And in some cases, you can't, you got to run lean, man. You got to run lean and mean it, because you can't afford to make mistakes. Like if you make a mistake in a market with a lower price point, it can put you out of business real quick, man. You know what I mean? And so like, I love, what you just said there. It's a blessing and a curse that we're in
Yep.
smaller markets that have a lower average sale price, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Knowing your numbers, Gordon was asking too, I kind of have my take on this, but what lead source is giving you guys the biggest profit margin?
Our SOI by far and away, man. And I can't imagine anybody could put up an argument against that, because the thing about SOI, while there was an investment probably on the front end, we have enough clients in our database now, and we've done a good job marketing to those people that the returns are, they're infinite at this point. When somebody just picks up the phone and calls you, it's hard to put a dollar figure on that. But, if you're spending money on Zillow, what your CPL and conversion rate is. But with our SOI, by far and away, it is the most profitable business that we have.
I would agree. Healthy number that we always try to strive for is, can we get 50% of our business and continue to grow coming from the people that know us, like us, love us, trust us. And, investing in those relationships. And I think, when you understand lifetime value, right, it's the LTV, what's the lifetime value? And so like, even for you guys, starting out with, hammering expireds for sell by owners, right? You're putting the sweat equity in, right? You're sweating and you're doing the open houses and driving traffic and nurturing and building relationships. But those activities, the lifetime, what is it, compound to? So SOI, sphere of influence. So the people that you're influencing over in your community, that's going to be your sphere.
They already know, like, and trust you, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about sweat equity, there's not a lot of the sweat equity that you're putting into your sphere of influence is going to be much less than what you would put into an expired or for sell by owner or an internet buyer lead, because those are people that already know, like, and trust you, right? And all we're trying to do with internet leads or expireds and for sell by owners is break through and build rapport. Well, with our SOI, we've already built that rapport, right? And so I would always rather sit on a listing appointment in front of somebody that I already knew, right, than if I was interviewing 3 or 4 other agents.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. No, fantastic. So let's just recap our 5. So, knowing your why, right? Really understanding that, really working on that and getting clear on that. And Holly shared this at Agent to CO. She said, your kids are not your why. The kids are the what. Yeah. And so it's just like the example of kind of what we were talking about. It's just that contribution, so you have a greater impact. Now it's the impact that you're having on them, modeling that behavior. So know your why. Follow a dang routine, right? Use the calendar, use the color codes, take your week at a glance, really taking a look at it. And then I would say get somebody accountable that can hold accountability back and forth with, right? That you're reporting. Even if it's something simple as a text at the end of the day, right? Hey, what was your commitment? Did you keep your commitments for the day? And just texting back and forth, that I've seen that work extremely well. Lead generate, stay consistent on it day in and day out, writing out your goals, detailed writing out your goals, and then knowing your numbers, not only the KPIs and the activities that get the results, but pay attention to your financials, man. Get those dialed in. Should be looking at them on a consistent basis, not when the bank statement comes in. Get into a weekly routine. You're reviewing everything. You're seeing where things are at, understanding cash flow, and really paying attention to it.
And one thing I would add, John, to writing out your goals is making sure that you're revisiting them often.
Yes. 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 Yeah. I've gotten into, the Sunday routine to where, write out the goals that we've identified for the quarter and constantly looking at it and, what has to happen, right? What am I committed to make happen this week that's going to move me closer to the outcomes that we're after? So, man, it's powerful. But like you said, man, it's like putting on socks and tying your shoes correctly. It really is, man. It's so dang powerful. And making sure that you're instilling these while things are going well.
And what's great, like John, too, if you do all these right, you don't have to worry about all the other fancy shit that's out there that they're trying to sell you. Man, if you do all these things correctly, you'll have a great business.
Yep, for sure. Absolutely. Cool. Man, good stuff as always, brother. I appreciate you taking the time, jumping on, and adding value and being a true expert mentor for all of us in the Honey Badger Nation. Man, appreciate you. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks, brother.
See ya.